Hi, my name is Rebecca Zabarski with Parrot Analytics, and you are watching the Global TV Demand Awards Virtual Festival, which celebrates the people behind the world's most popular TV and talent. I have the pleasure to be speaking with Mark Roybal, executive producer of HBO's Mare of Easttown, which is a finalist for the most in-demand revolutionary series of 2021. Great to be with you here, Mark.
Nice to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Mark, when we talk about revolutionary series, we're talking about brand new shows based on entirely original IP. And in that respect, Mare of Easttown is revolutionary in 2021 when many series are based on known IP or pre-existing franchises. So my first question starts with the idea of the show being revolutionary. After I watched the show, I was reflecting, and I found the idea of a story that ends with hope and a reconciliation of deep wounds, as we see Mare do at the end of the series. I found that to be one of the most revolutionary aspects of the show and its storytelling. And I want to know from you, what did you consider revolutionary about Mare of Easttown?
Well, Rebecca, thank you for saying that. I think that is exactly what I found revolutionary about it, to be honest. Not a lot of people have written about that, to be honest. When Brad Inglesby, the writer, the creator, and a great friend of mine, talked about the show initially, the first thing he said to me was, the show is about mercy. And when somebody says that to me, or says that in general, you just think, whoa, a show about mercy. It's such a deep emotional idea, an abstract idea. And usually people talk about, oh, it's a murder, it's an investigation, it's a genre. They talk about the entertainment value of things to kind of get you interested. But he was interested in the deep emotional core of this story, and further, something that we rarely hear about, this hope, this forgiveness, and, as you said, mercy. And so he talked about this notion of a community coming together, and the pain that they're going to go through, and especially this woman Mare. And but by the end, in its last images, this notion of hope, that they're all going to come together, and she's going to find something, and that there's going to be a sense of hope through her actions and through this reconciliation, as you said, and it's going to come through the act of mercy. And I just thought, wow, what an unbelievable story that would be, right? And a story that we rarely see in movies or in television. And the way he articulated it just got me. It really moved me, and I think that's for me a barometer. If something can move me, I'm going to be with it, right? I'm going to throw in on that. And to me, you can create plot, you can devise all kinds of tricks to create a story, but if it doesn't have an emotional core, if it doesn't have an idea like mercy, then I don't know why you'd want to tell a story. And Brad came in guns blazing with that, so I was there.
That's incredible. It feels cathartic, actually, especially in this type of year, these past 2 years, for everyone around the world to be witness to that type of story, and to kind of see that sort of mercy and emotional connection with a character that might look very much like the audience, right?
Totally. I mean, we didn't mean for it to be political or for it to make a statement about the world, but of course, what we've been through, it's hard not to think about the world outside of your home, that we were trapped in for the last 2 years, and to see what was happening out there. And not to get political, but there were a lot of things going on. There was a lot of violence and anger, and a lot of people doing a lot of bad things to each other, and how are we going to reconcile that? How are we gonna forgive each other? How are we gonna get past that? And I think it struck a chord in many ways, whether it was articulated or not. I think people felt that in the show. And I just think it, it was, I don't know, lucky timing. It wasn't devised that way. It just felt like, it was a show that was concerned about something that was fundamental to us, mm-hmm. and to humans, and people responded.
Sure, absolutely. We see that with our data for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the process of developing the project and producing it and seeing it come to life. Tell us a little bit about that, and also why you found it so important to tell the story of Mayor Sheehan and Easttown right now.
Well, developing it was pretty much a dream. I mean, Brad had this idea of Mare and this place, Easttown, a fictional place, but kind of inspired by the town or the area that he grew up in. So he had it kind of plotted out in his head, and so the development of it was fairly straightforward. He wrote 2 scripts, or he wrote a pilot, I should say, and he sent it to me after a breakfast. I said, we should get into television. I had worked with him for many years on features to no avail, and I said, you've got to get in television. Send me the pilot, and because he had coincidentally finished it the night before I saw him for breakfast, and I said I loved it, and he said, well, let's do it. So once we read the pilot and we committed to each other, we said, well, we should probably write a second episode to differentiate yourself from the marketplace. At the time, Sharp Objects was on the air at HBO, and again, a woman in a small town looking into a murder. Just thought, let's just kind of get away from that a little bit. And so he wrote the second episode, and at that point, we read it and we said, let's go get Kate Winslet. And within a week, she said yes, not
Wow.
knowing the rest of the story. I mean, truly kind of a blessing. She's incredible to say yes and never wavered. And at that point, we had Kate and our director, and we just had the team. So we decided to go to HBO and to all the other buyers around town, and we had a lot of interest, as you can imagine, and HBO said yes. And so once they said yes, they commissioned the rest of the scripts, and then Brad just kept on writing, and he would turn in scripts every month, and we'd give some notes, and by the end of it, we had 7 episodes and just went into production at that point. So it was a fairly blessed process and a very transparent process between Brad, myself, and Kate and our director, and fairly straightforward. But again, it was all in his head, and it was kind of a dream. So, and why we wanted to make it at the time, it was, I'll just be honest, it was just such a compelling character, and in a world that we did not know of. People said, oh, red state, blue state, oh, it's not in a city, and it's kind of outside of Philadelphia, but we didn't really think of that, to be honest. It was just a place that we didn't know, but we wanted to be there, and Brad just, because Brad came from a place like that, it felt authentic, and it felt very lived in, and these people felt genuine. And from page 1, there was an immediate connection. I've never been to that part of the world. Obviously, I've been to Philadelphia, but not 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia. But I just knew these people, and I think everybody had that kind of reaction. They knew they had an aunt like that, or they had a cousin like that, and they just said, "Yeah, man, I'm related to that person." And I just think, who doesn't have a family that has secrets? Now, not dark secrets like the Sheens, but who doesn't have? Right, hopefully not, but who doesn't have family that is dealing with traumatic issues or sometimes, mental health or not mental health issues or problems with their children, things like that. And you just thought, yeah, I know that. And I don't know, I just wanted to be there.
Right. So what is something that you learned about yourself throughout this whole process?
Oh,
We're going deep.
oh, we're going deep. Oh gosh, I need another cup of coffee. What did I learn about myself? Quite a bit, I'll be honest. I mean, look, we were in production for a very long time, right? So we started in November of, let me get this right, November of 19. We shot for a couple of months, then COVID hit. Then we had a 6-month hiatus, then resumed in the fall of 2020, and then finished, is that right? In the spring of 2021, right? So we were in production for a long time. So there was, and half of that was sitting on set by myself, not, being isolated from people, not being able to talk. And so there was a lot of self-reflection. But this story I connected to this story in many, many ways. I'm Catholic. I don't come from a big family, but I do have a lot of deep connections to my friends and some family in that way. Have obviously, we are getting deep here. Have had issues in my family with, addiction and mental health issues. So it just, I connected in so many ways, but I will say, without getting too deep into too personal, but I will say that what I've learned is that that family is everything, and the community is everything, right? That if you don't have a network of people that you love and trust, it really is, it is lonely, and loneliness is a killer. And we certainly have felt that in the last year and a half. Now that's the story, right? In terms of production, I will also say that it also played out in that regard. We had an incredible team in Philadelphia. They literally put themselves on the line. We went, when we took a pause for the pandemic, when we said we're going to see each other soon, we didn't know how long, right? We knew that the world was going to change. We didn't know how drastically. When we came back 6 months later, we were one of the first productions to come back to resume. So we were one of kind of the guinea pigs to kind of figure out the protocols and all that. They didn't know, they were scared, just like we were, just like the management team, the production management team. We didn't exactly know what was going to happen or what we had to do, but the team that was there that came back, they all came back for Mare. They turned down other jobs to finish this show, and they could have taken other jobs. They could have said no, but they came back for this, not knowing how this was going to work out. And they wanted to see this job done, and they did. Nobody got sick, thank God. And we all banded together because we wanted to finish it. And that sounds a little bit, I don't know, cheesy, I don't know, but we did really have something special. And it was a pretty emotional goodbye, even though we couldn't hug at the end because we were all masked and we still didn't even know if we could, even shake hands, but it was a pretty emotional ending to it all. So it kind of reflected what was happening in the show.
What a testament to the team that you put together and that worked on that. That's incredible.
Yeah, incredible team put together by Ron Schmidt and Karen Wacker and Casey Goodell and HBO. Yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, what a unique time to be working in general, and then to create a production. I'm always blown away when I think through production in general. I've been on sets, and just being there and having an energy and the complications and the logistics that are required, and then adding into, adding on top of that, the pandemic and COVID restrictions and regulations. I'm amazed. It actually gives me even more gratitude towards the creators, especially, during the past year, who put forth these incredible stories. You would never know that there were any type of restrictions. And this is the time to sort of reflect on that. It's pretty wild.
Pretty wild. It's incredibly, I mean, the amount of hurdles and logistical nightmares that they face every day, right? You just think, how is this even possible, right? And to know what the stakes the stakes are so high, and you just think, wow, they really are dealing with lives, and yet they figure it out, and people still go out there and they do it, and because not only do they have to, but they want to, and it gets done, and the art doesn't suffer, and in fact it makes it sometimes better, to be honest. It's incredible. It really is. The resilience is just kind of inspiring.
It is, and you're right. Maybe the art certainly did not suffer. I wanted to share a little bit about what we've seen on our side at Parrot Analytics in terms of the data behind the worldwide success of the show. So like I mentioned, the series is a finalist for the Global TV Demand Awards. This is, not US based, not North American. We truly look at every country in the world. And we see that the show is popular, of course, with English language audiences. So that's the US and the UK and Australia. But we also see that audiences from Brazil, Spain, Argentina, and India are in the top 10 for audience demand for the show this year in 2021. And globally, peaked almost 60 times the demand of the average show. So that's 60 times the demand of the average show throughout 2021. And I like to share that with creators because it's a something that you might not often see in terms of measure and scale of impact of your content.
That's incredible.
What do you make of that global success? Why do you think it would be so popular with audiences in places like Brazil or India or Argentina?
Well, first of all, I mean, a lot of it has to go to Ms. Winslet herself, I think. I mean, she was in a tiny little indie movie called Titanic, which still to this day resonates, right? I mean, that's one piece of it. I think she's just somebody that we have grown up with, and I've had this conversation with her, to be honest, where I mean, I'm a little bit older than she is, than Mare Sheehan is, and Kate is, but I've grown up with her. I mean, I've seen Kate, and I know all of her performances, and I've seen her, as Rose, and even before then, and I don't know, there's a deep attachment to Kate Winslet in this world, and she's just constantly delivered quality work, right? And she's just known as just delivering unbelievable performances and beautiful characters. So when I think and that's part of the reason why we wanted her to be Mare Sheehan, right? A complicated character with so many layers. And so I think when we delivered this, or marketing this show, and people could see that this was going to be another complicated character, and Kate was at the center of this, I think they thought, oh, okay, well, this is worth watching. And so it translates around the world because Kate delivering another performance, she just delivers that. The doors are open for her automatically. And she's also just, I mean, she's just this is sounds so strange to say, but she's such a wonderful human being when you get to know her, right? But I think she also exudes that. There's just a natural empathy for her. So that goes such a long way. And so I think people just want to watch her. And even though she plays this character that is so jaded and cynical and vape smoking and just kind of angry with the world, right? I think you still want to you still want her to win. You still want to, I don't know, you want to hug her. You want to, it's, you still see Kate Winslet in it, even though she disappears, don't get me wrong, in the role, you still care for her. And so that's Kate, right? And then I think, there are those universal themes that come out in this show. As you said, this idea of hope and forgiveness, this idea of community, which I think just translates for all cultures, no boundaries, I think. Those are deeply human values and fundamentals. And then of course, there's the genre aspect of it, the idea of a murder mystery, a case, the procedural part of it. Now, I think people will think, people initially thought, it's just another murder mystery. Unfortunately, the death of a young woman. But those are tropes that I think do travel. But I think what we did was we provided something that goes beyond that. And I think people picked up on that. So initially, I think people were there for the tropes, but then we gave them something a little bit more than that. I mean, I think people stayed because of that.
Absolutely. You can't look away from Kate during
Yeah, it's true.
Cannot look away. It's
True.
incredible acting, and it's a character that, like you said, you want to give a hug. That's a great way to put it. And you end up, you might see yourself, right? And like you said earlier, your family or people that you might know. So that was something that struck me when I looked at that data, and I see the incredible reach that this show has. You're right; those things are universal, I would say.
Yeah.
And so, the show is an award-winning show with 16 Emmy noms, 4 Emmy wins. Congratulations! Really incredible accomplishment. So it's obviously, it's a worldwide success and also a critical success. And it's, people are engaged with the show and talking about it. What would you say is a narrative about Mare of Easttown that you think is missing from news coverage?
That's a really great question. That is a great question. I think you actually said something at the beginning, to kind of go back to it. People talk about how dark this is, how how gritty, how dark. I never thought of it as dark, and maybe because maybe that says something about me. I'm not sure, but yes, there are dark themes, really dark themes, but I never really thought of it as a dark show, and I always did think of it as something of a family show, not a family show. I mean, I have young kids, so they haven't seen this show, but I did think of it as a family show in terms of the values and and as a community, community coming together. And I just thought, it's so strange that here it is, we have people going to church, and we have people trying to work out their issues, and trying to work through their trauma. And I just thought, is that dark, or isn't that what we're all trying to do? So it was strange that I thought, as we were going through this, that we focused on the darkness, but not on the perseverance or the triumph of the human spirit, right? So you said it, that there is hope, but that was never really picked up on or never really talked about in the aftermath. It was always about the gritty and the darkness and the murder, and maybe because it comes really literally in the last 5 minutes. But to me, it was always people just trying to do their best, even in all 7 episodes and all throughout the series. It was, every character was always just trying to do their best, in sometimes the worst circumstances. There was maybe 1 bad character, maybe 2, but they were all dealing with things that we all deal with, or face, and they were just trying to make the best of it, right? And with the resources that they had. So I didn't find it dark, and they all had good, and for the most part, had good intentions.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, the conversations that I had after watching with my husband were, I mean, it was obviously thrilling and gripping, and
Yeah.
like we just binged it through to 3
Yeah.
a.m.
Oh, that's great.
It was a rough day the next day. I didn't look
Sorry
like
about that.
on the Zoom calls. But that was the conversation that we had after, was, wow, that was actually uplifting, you
Yeah.
know, in
Yeah.
a way that is rare for that type of drama. So,
Right.
you know, I was curious from your perspective what you thought.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, you
Sorry
know,
to keep you up till late.
well, you know, it's the best kind of
Yeah.
you know, staying up when you turn and you're like, should we or shouldn't we? And
One
it's,
more, just one more.
oh, let's do it.
Yeah.
um, so, you know, you mentioned before that you've had a career producing features, and a long successful career of creating really wonderful films. What would be, you know, what would you say is the main difference between producing this show versus working on films that you've done over the past, you know, several years?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll be honest, you know, they're starting to blend together. To be honest, it's a slightly different development process, and you know, I mean that's different for sure. But in terms of the actual execution, they're starting to blend together. You know, it's different sets of people and different contexts, different buyers. I mean, that's always going to be different. But I'll tell you, it's the same muscle memory, the same part of the brain. It's always focusing on the script, right? Always about the script first, and then trying to piece it together in the best possible way. But I would say the marketplace is just such a rough and tumble place right now, that anything goes. Just like I found the feature world kind of that place, right? Where if you don't have strong IP, it's going to be very hard for you. If you have an original idea, very steep climb. And if you don't have Kate Winslet or you know, a great crew of people, it's going to be very difficult. But if you have an undeniable package, as they say, a great IP or great script, great concept, and great talent attached to it, you're gonna, you know, you have to have all those things to kind of get things going. So it's starting to, the TV and the feature world are starting to kind of mirror each other in many ways. And I think that's what you're seeing as a consumer, right? I mean, when you're sitting on your couch and watching TV, when you're watching your screen, do you really make a difference? Like, I'm going to watch a movie versus I'm going to watch a series. You just want to know what something that's good. And if it's a 2-hour commitment or an 8-hour commitment, you're not going to make it's not going to make a difference. You'll either pause it and resume it later, or you'll binge through it until 3 a.m. Right? So it's starting to kind of merge or blend together, both on the execution side and as well as on the consumption side. So I kind of approach it the same way. I still spend my hours and my weekends, my nights reading, looking for that great material. And I still spend my days calling all the people that I need to call to put it together. And I still have the same conversations with all of my filmmakers and all my writers to get that script right and put it together. It's not the greatest answer, but that's all I can say. It's all blurring, or maybe I'm just getting too old.
Well, it sounds like it's more similar than different, and you're
Yeah.
pointing to something that we see. I mean, I'm just thinking as a consumer. You're right.
Yeah.
You know, what we want is something good. It doesn't really matter what that format is. Now I'm gonna, that will anger a lot of like big film people, like who believe that that is a sacred format. And of course it can be, but it's just it's an interesting time that we're in terms of that blurring of the lines between, between those formats, and certainly the distribution and access that consumers have. Like you mentioned, when you're sitting on your couch and you have options, a lot of options, including very, very short form content too, and just
Totally.
and a lot of that. So that actually brings me to my last question. This has been such an excellent interview. Thank you for being so open and so honest about these questions. This is, what I'd like to know is, what do you consider revolutionary entertainment in 2021? And what should our audience of executives and creatives look out for in 2022?
Oh my, oh my, oh my. I'm gonna need more than coffee for that one. I might need a shot of tequila in that coffee. Okay. Let's see. What I consider revolutionary entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, this sounds like a plug for my wife, and it isn't. Although it is kind of. So my wife runs IMAX. So I see things on the theatrical side, and I love theatrical. My heart is in film. But so she has just done something that has been years in the making. And so I've seen it from the inside, and I think what she is doing and what can happen, or what is happening at IMAX and can happen elsewhere, is revolutionary. So what they just did is the Kanye Drake concert. I don't know if you saw that. Mm-hmm. That was streamed, or which was performed live in IMAX theaters, streamed on Amazon Prime, and it was also it was the live concert at the LA Coliseum, right? Mm-hmm. So what was so revolutionary about that was it was a live performance broadcast around the world, but also consumed in theaters, but also consumed on your screen.
Wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. And I was standing there in the Coliseum, watched it on my video for a second, on my phone for a second, and then went to get a margarita. And I saw it on the TV, and I just thought, oh my goodness. And then saw somebody from IMAX projecting it, and I thought, oh my, and people going crazy. And I just thought, oh, this is the future, right? Where content can be consumed in all kinds of platforms and can be consumed at the same time. And I thought, well, here we are. If we can actually think about content, stories that is not just for one screen, but can be consumed live, can be consumed on different platforms, for sure. I understand, produced, unscripted, whatever, but it can just be an event, right? Consumed at the same time in a communal experience. That to me feels like this is how the world can get back together. And it can be a theatrical, it can be a theatrical experience. It can be a communal experience. I think that's going to be something that I would love to participate in, right? And that's going to get the world back online. I just thought, wow, and it can come through music, it can come through unscripted, it can come through all kinds of things, right? I just think, I don't know, that there's just seems something to be like, let's get back into the world, hopefully soon. But I think that's revolutionary. That's thinking about content in a totally different way. And that'll change how we tell stories.
Absolutely. The idea of an experience, the collective effervescence, that's the word I read about this past year that we've missed.
Correct.
Energy that we feel when we're around others, and that can happen at a concert or in a movie theater or with a group of friends. We've missed that. So I think you were totally spot on. What an incredible event that was. And totally. Fascinating to see what happens and how people expand on that in the future. Totally. I think that sounds revolutionary.
Cannot wait.
Wonderful. Well, Mark, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time. And we're excited to see what happens at the end of the year when we announce the Global TV Demand Awards, all the winners. Again, this was Mark Roybal for Mare of Easttown for the most in-demand revolutionary series of 2021. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for having me. Take care.